is the midfielders. It is John Gibbons here with Neil Atkinson. And yeah, today we're going to be looking at the options that Liverpool have in the centre of the pitch. Yesterday we did the attackers, so if you've not watched that, that is available to watch. And it is available for free now, as is this one. Thanks a lot to NordVPN who are partnering with us at the moment. And courtesy of them, we're able to make a lot more video content available for free, which is great. But these are the midfield options. I'll do a little bit more on NordVPN in a few minutes or so, but I just want to get everything sorted, get our house in order first of all. And so Stefan Bajcetic has gone on loan to Salzburg. He's gone to see Pep Linders to see how they're getting on. He's going to be playing Champions League football because they've qualified.
Is that Austria then?
Which
this
is
time?
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, well, I might change my mind when I figure everything out. But at the moment, that is Austria. Bobby Clark has gone as well. Also to Austria, so I'll put him there. He's gone on a permanent. I'm sure there's a buyback or something, but he is joining Pep Linders' somewhat balmy army. I don't know how balmy they are, to be honest with you.
Well, they're a Champions League club.
Yeah, I saw them celebrating that. That was quite balmy. So there you are. So they're doing that. And then also, the Talamon ended up staying, didn't he? So these are also Liverpool's options. So we've got, Ryan Gravenberch there. I'm going to keep Trent involved from the midfield just to sort of talk about him. We've got Alexis McAllister. There is Curtis Jones. We've got Endo, Tyler Morton, as I say, ended up staying. We've got Sabozlai, and we've got Harvey Ellis, who is being seen very much as a midfielder. And we're going to talk about a couple of the young players as well, not least Trey Leone, who impressed in pre-season.
Yeah, I'm sad to see Bobby Clark go, and I think that could have been, something happens to Harvey Elliott, and I'm saying there was a role for him to play, but then I don't want something to happen to Harvey Elliott, so let's be crystal clear about that. And he is sort of behind Elliott as when we want to talk about caps and ranks.
Yeah,
I think it's a funny thing, really, the departure of young players. I think at times there may well be just simply a tactical, technical aspect to it as to why they didn't want to keep them. There might just be a financial cashing in aspect. But I think there is a little bit of a thing at times where we all say we want young players to come through, and people who work in academies and things want young players to come through. But you also don't want to create logjams. And that is, it's a bit of a funny thing. It's a bit of an odd thing to say. But ultimately, Clark got 12 appearances last season. And I think it's perfectly legitimate for Clark. And it's interesting how fast it happens. You go from 19 to 22. And I think Clark wants to make 24 appearances this season. And he wasn't going to make them playing for Liverpool.
No.
And I think that, therefore, to have that sort of wider what is good for them conversation. And I think Liverpool, and I think this is the hardest thing for us as a fan base to get on board with. Liverpool can't plan everything around a worst case scenario. They have to plan around, they have to plan around good case scenarios and bad case scenarios, but they can't make decisions based on the sky falls in. And this is something I've struggled to make my peace with, and I'm not sure if I entirely have yet, and especially we're going to do defenders at some point soon, and I would like another midfielder, we'll get onto that as well. But also, it's also accurate to say the club would have liked another midfielder, so we'll get onto that in a minute as well. But I think that it's one thing to plan for, as I say, to allow for the idea that things might not go as entirely according to the plan in the injury sense. But it's another thing to plan every position as though you're going to have an injury crisis, and you need to act as though an injury crisis is inevitable in every facet of the pitch.
Yeah.
And I think that we've managed to sort of talk ourselves into that might be worth doing. And I want to be clear about this, that's not illogical. When you look at 2021 and you look at 23-24, that's not illogical. And then you look at the legs falling off in 22-23. That's not insane. It's not insane to plan for the worst. But I think we can say, unless something really is going on with Salah and Van Dijk, that'll shift the contract conversations. Legs aren't falling off anywhere, so cross that one off.
Yeah.
And then the next one then becomes, all right, I'm someone listening to that might be saying Andy Robertson, and we'll talk about that in the defenders. The next one then becomes, they do not want to act as though the worst will happen. Not least because they almost won't want to will it into being. So then it becomes where you think your danger line is. So on Bobby Clark, I think if you can't say 20 appearances, all comps, then you are better off saying maybe you need to go and find somewhere else. I think on Bajcetic, it's a slightly different conversation. But if you feel as though it could be 3 months before he's up to the speed of what you need, then you may well be saying, well, let him go somewhere else and do that with someone who we trust and who'll have faith in and we've got a relationship with both as a club, and the manager knows Linders as well. It's not just as simple as the club. The manager knows him. The manager's got that relationship too. So I think in the end, with all of the young player departures, I think you've just almost got to go, okay, they don't want a worst case scenario. That's what they want to plan for, and I think we've got to make our peace with that, John. I really do, as hard as it is for some of us.
Yeah, and I think there's all really pointing just to add to sort of it a little bit. You know, numbers wise, you know, if the manager was here, he'd be saying, "Well, you all want one more," and I agree. And you know, we're going to try and probably do that again in January, sort of if it works out. So there's going to be another midfielder there, and we all love Trey Leone, and we all want to see him get minutes, and I agree. And then we've got Bobby Clark, and where does sort of he fits into
exactly.
all this.
Then it's a pincer movement on Bobby Clark, where, you know, if Bobby Clark's looking at it,
trying to add experience, and then you've got someone younger. And I think the worst thing that can happen to a young player is an even younger one comes along who's fucking brilliant. And it's happened to a couple of times to Liverpool players where there's been an exciting young one, and then there's been an even more exciting younger one, and then suddenly you're sort of a bit yesterday's man.
Yeah, I think that it's been forever thus.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think there's one. So I'll give you a really good example, and it's not just because we know that, you know, he's coming and done stuff and he's a nice fella. I always felt like Liverpool should have done more with Stephen Warnock. Like, I think as a consistent squad player who could have been a real useful Premier League asset for Liverpool, I always felt there was more we could have got out of him.
Well, he plays for England after he leaves.
Exactly. So yeah, I always felt there was more on that. And But that was at that point where Warnock was becoming a bona fide young professional who's going to go on and get England caps after he leaves. I think Clark's in a different situation where there is that pincer movement of they want to get some time for Trey Leone. And by the way, the 8 appearances all comps Trey Leone might end up getting is not as many as Bobby Clark wants. So Trey gets them, they feel great. The step one on a journey that then next season becomes where do I get to 25?
Yeah.
And then it goes from there. With Clark, I think it is difficult. And I say all this from the position of the fact that I love him. You know what I'm like, from the minute I saw him last pre-season, I was like, this is the sort of midfield that I just get right behind and bang into. I think it makes sense. I think they both make sense in the cold light today. And I think we haven't got Leone on here because he may well get some time on the pitch against West Ham in the third round of the EFL Cup. I don't think he'll be hitting that many squads if 85% of the squad are fit. I don't think he'll be in that many squads. I think that there is still, whether we all like it or not, I think there is still a hierarchy in football clubs. You've got your senior players, and your senior players expect to be in the 20. And if they're not in the 20 and a kid is, someone at the club's getting a phone call from an agent on Monday morning, not in a rude way, just sort of saying, well, what's going on here?
Yeah.
No one's kicking off as such, but I just need to understand.
I think that's been going on over the summer. I think that's partly what's forced a couple of things is that, you know, there's a new manager. You know, agents probably just feel like to do the job. We say, well, what's your plan for my lad? He's had this upward curve. It's been going well. And what's your plan? And I think the manager's probably gone like...
Well, no, but
I'm not sure.
And whether that's gone to Hughes or that goes to Slot or it ends up with both. And I would argue it should probably end up with both.
Yeah.
But also that's agents doing the jobs.
Yeah.
And I, you know, ultimately what we don't want is the waste of human resources, as basic as that is. Like, I like our young players. I like a number of them. I was pleased and impressed with them last season. But I want them to go and have good careers.
Yeah.
And if that means that their Liverpool high point, not even necessarily their career high point, but their Liverpool high point becomes that League Cup final, so be it. They all deserve to have good careers, because if they're all good young professionals and they're all fully committed, you know, I want them to be the best version of themselves, not be our break glass option should the very worst happen again. Which is something we look at.
And that brings me on to what was going to be my last point on that, is that if Alex Inglethorpe was sat here, he'd be like, Bobby Clark's a brilliant success story.
Yeah.
For our academy. You know, he's not. We didn't get him in when he was 9, but he comes in. We've took him to another level. We've given first team football, and now he's going to go and play Champions League football in Salzburg. Haven't we done a brilliant job for him and also for Liverpool Football Club, because we've made all this money? And so they're looking at it two ways. They're looking at it from a financial point of view, because the academy they look to have it be almost sort of self-sufficient, you know, and then the Trent Alexander-Arnold's are almost, you know, this wonderful cherry on top of the cake, but you know they want it to, you know, pay for itself, you know, in effect. So financially, it's been a really good move for Liverpool, but also, you know what I mean, listen, Barry Lutis isn't getting up in the morning to put money in the bank, do you know what I mean? He's getting up in the morning because he loves coaching young players, he loves developing them. So from a purely footballing point of view, and from all these people are doing this job because they love developing footballers, they'll be going, what a brilliant job we've done with him. So it is a success story. I
couldn't agree more with that, and there's another phase of this as well, which is that we know that when Michael Edwards came back, there was talk of Liverpool becoming a multi-club model, or FSG becoming a multi-club model with Liverpool at the head of it. And there was talk of Bordeaux, so we know that this is legitimate. We know that was part of the idea. They put it in writing, and there's been action around Bordeaux when it doesn't happen. But you and me, we're both sceptical of it. for similar, but maybe with different, well, for the same reasons, but arguably with different emphasis, is one of your positions. Is you just don't think it's particularly worked anywhere, which I think is a perfectly valid one. But part, therefore, of if you're not going to have, and currently we haven't got a multi-club model, I can't have my cake and eat it. You've got to go and therefore let these lads go and let them develop somewhere else. And you've got to be able to roll with those punches. If you are against a multi-club model, but you want Liverpool to have a continually thriving academy, then you've got to accept that Liverpool's academy assets will move away from the group, in inverted commas, because you've said you don't want a group.
Well, there you go. Bobby Clark could be up, Bordeaux.
Yeah. Captain.
And that could have been the way forward. But it isn't to be. Bobby Clark leaves on a permanent. Stefan Bajcetic on a loan, but both to the same place, and we'll see how they go. But this is what this leaves us with. But before that, I do want to give a huge shout out to NordVPN, who are partnering with us with a lot of videos at the moment, and we appreciate their support. And I know a lot of you appreciate the service that they are offering you, because NordVPN, there's a variety of reasons to sign up, and if you go to nordvpn.com/TAW, it will give you the whole list, the whole raft of things that NordVPN is able to protect you from online. So there's lots of people who are unfortunately looking to do phishing attacks and things like that, get your personal data, and something like NordVPN protects you from that, which is especially important when you are logging into public Wi-Fi's and maybe in spaces, you're going on holiday and things like that, and you're not really sure, but you need to get online. It is that extra peace of mind that I know a lot of people will enjoy. Were you trying to get in there?
No.
I fell you were, sorry.
Sorry.
But I think a lot of us, the main reason why do we enjoy, and I know for me, one of the reasons I use it is when we're traveling, maybe away, and we want to keep in touch with our favourite TV shows. It allows you to do that. And also back here when you are in Liverpool. The NFL is starting this weekend, which is exciting. We're doing shows on the remote hosting and stuff like that. And listen, the Sky NFL coverage is great, but sometimes it is nice to maybe enjoy that.
I love that red zone.
Yeah, it's good.
When I'm in America. So I've not watched it here, but I might actually use this for this purpose.
Yeah.
I like the red zone, John.
Yeah, it's all action.
Yeah.
It is absolutely all action. They do a great job of pulling everything together. So stuff like that, where you want to enjoy your sporting event in another country's service, you can change your virtual location. It's a click of a button. It's really easy, and it opens up the world of streaming, of sports, of entertainment to you at the click of a button. So nordvpn.com/TAW if you want to sign up there. They're doing a special offer for all you guys as well, so you get a really good price. You get 4 months extra on top of your subscription, and there is a 30-day money-back guarantee. So there we go.
There we are.
On to the midfielders then. So let's do, as we did with the forwards, the 3 who started the first 3 games.
Other side, put on the other side.
Do you want to be here? Yeah. McAllister on the left, Gravenberch on the right, and Szoboszlai. Where do you want me to put Szoboszlai? We should put him about there. About there. I mean, he's all actually. He's covered more ground than any Liverpool player so far this season. So there you are. Szoboszlai is doing bits. And then let's get a 3 along behind them as well. So I'll put Curtis Jones here if Neil is happy.
Yeah.
I will put Endo here, and I will put Harvey Elliott just sort of behind him there, and that leaves us Tyler Morton floating, and we have included Trent as a bit of a break glass emergency option, but it does look like it would. It very much will be that from indications. There's your 6 plus 1.5 then.
Yeah, I think ultimately, we know that the club wants to buy someone. Yeah. So, that's for me, that's the beginning, middle and end of the matter. They were very clear on who they wanted to buy.
Do you think if they had got one with a left, either Morton on a loan or even Endo for a fee?
I think it's possible. Both? I think it's possible both.
Yeah.
If they'd have got one in, I think it's possible they'd have gone with both. I think they may well be looking at Morton. Yeah, I mean, this can sound a bit mad, but he may well have just had a really good 2 weeks in training. And he might well have sniffed as an opportunity here. Frankly, after the Zubimendi thing falls through, this is the flip side of agents. The agent might have rang him and said, "Lad, you want to
hang on here."
You want a big 2 weeks. You want a 2 weeks where you're first in, you're last to leave, and you're doing absolutely everything because there could be a chance for you. I'm fascinated to see what he picks in the League Cup game. Who goes where in the League Cup game? I'm really struck by it. What he might do, because I think that there's a chance by that point we're all thinking, well, Curtis hasn't had enough football still, at which point you'd expect Curtis to start, and then I think it's a big question mark as to who starts that right-hand side between Endo and Morton from what we've seen. I thought Morton played well in pre-season. I thought he looked perfect.
Did start any games?
No, but I thought when he came on, I thought he looked, and I think it's hard that he is just playing with younger players at that point. Like there's lads like Stevenson playing, who I thought had a good pre-season, so I'm not talking him down.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as it's playing with, even with Bradley. It's not the same as playing with Bradley at that point in time. You're coming on there and you are.
Yeah, you got Harvey Blair up front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're almost one of the more, and weirdly, you're one of the more senior people on the pitch because you've had your loan spells. You've played grown football in a way that those other lads haven't. So I think it's difficult to judge that, but I actually think he does well in that context. I thought he dovetailed nicely with Basetic, which I think is, I think that bodes well. So I'll be intrigued to see which way round that goes, who plays in those games when we get to that EFL Cup game. But ultimately they wanted one more. We know they wanted one more. Where I've sort of ended up with it, and the more I've seen us play, the more I've ended up with it. And again, I know it doesn't make me popular, but I'm not that bothered now. I would probably now not buy someone who's a nailed-on attacking midfielder because I think Szoboszlai and Elliott, I think Elliott is what he is, and I could see Elliott being able to back up from what we've seen in the McAllister position, but it really would be backing it up. I wouldn't be sort of advocating at this stage in his career the idea he goes and gets 15 games there. So I wouldn't have a problem with them effectively if you wanted to move your pieces around a little bit. If they were to buy one who would suit alternating with McAllister, to move Jones into alternating with Gravenberch and trust Jones to show the sort of development we've seen Gravenberch show so far. I understand. Yeah, I understand why. Because of the success we have with Fabinho when he comes in, I understand. The success you've seen City have with Rodri and what Rodri is as a footballer. But when I now look at Arsenal, Declan Rice is now not playing as their deepest lying player. And in everyone's head, that's what he was when he was bought. And everyone this summer says, we need to buy a Rodri, we need to buy a Rice. But Declan's not playing there. Lads, he's playing somewhere else.
And they've just got another one in Moreno, although he's hurt himself early, so we're not going to see him, I don't think, for a few weeks or whatever it is. But he's going to be deeper than Rice. So the stock of the other way.
If they play together on it, might be that they've got Moreno there because they want to alternate that with Rice, because they want to have two really, sitting robust options in there to go next to someone else. And that makes sense. He's a big lad, Moreno, and Rice is a big lad as well. But again, even last season, though, Arsenal end the season when they're on that run. It's Jorginho playing deepest, who's not a robust ball-winning midfielder, but he is a deep-lying one. I feel like a lot of players, and when you now look back, including Liverpool's history, but also in the history of other clubs, I cited the example of Fernandinho. Fernandinho scores a goal against Liverpool in a cup final playing right wing, and then gets moved back to play there because he gets older, but it's perceived to be this is something he can now do in his career. And we've seen with Gravenberch, listen, there'll become some sort of point where Liverpool will concede a goal in general, but will concede a goal that involves something happening in the middle of the park where you'd like them to be a little bit stronger and a little bit more robust. But that happens to Man City. That happens to that happens to absolutely everyone. If that becomes a pattern and it feels like there's an issue there, then we've seen that they wanted to address it. My point here is I don't think it's Zubimendi or bust, or I don't think it's someone that side or bust, or someone who traditionally has got 4 seasons playing as a deep-lying, holding midfielder or bust. I think you can buy someone who, as I say, can alternate with McAllister, Jones drops in there, and you're working on that. Or alternatively, I think you can just effectively buy someone and say, you know what, it's going to take us 6 months, but we're going to get you there, and we're going to go from there. The one thing I don't want them to do, even if he's doing brilliantly in Salzburg, is take up the attitude of it's Basetic next season, because I still think there's so much for him to do. Yeah. He's still a very young player, and it still is, it still is a bit of an ask. I don't want, that's the thing I don't want, when people talk about briefings, and I don't like it when people talk about briefings, but what I don't want is people to be saying, and look at these briefings in November. That's what, that's where I'd feel a little bit like, I'm just not having that necessarily. There's a reason why you've sent him out on loan. Yeah. It's a project, and it's a long-term one. I think they need one more. As I say, I now wouldn't be as committed to the idea of someone who comes in and knocks Szoboszlai or Elliott back. Not least I've been so impressed with Szoboszlai. Yeah, and also you mentioned in the forwards, which I think is right, the idea of Chiesa doing a little bit there and Gakpo if need be, even if it then turns more into a very much a 4-2-4, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Or 4-2-1-3. Even if you alternate it slightly, you can still see that work. And I agree with you. I think we're covered there. So I think it's the other two positions. And then I think from there as well, it's important not to, and we've all been doing this. I've just done it on this show as we've been talking. It's also worth saying, the one thing that I thought, the main thing I took from Endo last year, more than anything else, was that he's remarkably coachable. He really comes on under the previous manager. he looks a different player when he establishes himself in the team from December onwards. And it's possible that just happens again.
Yeah.
It's possible that they're working with him at the minute. I refuse to, for a second, you know, you look at where he ends up at Stuttgart as captain. I refuse to, as a second, you know, he's captain of his country. Let's be clear about this. This is a proud professional who will be fully committed. So, again, I don't want to do a thing where we'll end up acting as though, well, there's no way Endo can play a part either. I think he can. But I think we have to acknowledge the reality that they wanted one, and they went as close as you can to getting one without getting him. And not only did they want one, John, but they wanted him. He was more than 50 million quid. And I think he also shows you what they wanted, which was technical excellence. That's what they were prepared to invest in, technical excellence. And I think that is going to be the barometer for anyone who's coming into this Liverpool midfield. I think they're going to look for... I don't think they're going to buy someone now who has a more defensive mindset and think we'll get the technical excellence into him. I think they'll buy technical excellence and think that through tactics, approach and coaching, we get the defensive mindset into him. I think it's that way around.
I agree, and I think based on that, it is the area of the pitch that concerns me most, this one, going into next season, because I think, you know, these two have started phenomenally well, McAllister and Gravenberch. It's more of a surprise for in terms of Gravenberch. Obviously, McAllister, we've had 12 months, we know what he can do, and you look what he's won internationally as well. So these two, I think, have done fantastically well, and Gravenberch in particular is probably, you know, the biggest plus from this season, both in terms of what we thought we had and where we've got, but it's when we're going to need to alternate them. I do worry at the moment. And Gravenberch, he's had 3 great games. It's a lot to suggest that he's going to have 50 this season, both in terms of his body and also just that consistency that young players sort of tend to don't have. So you know, if you're sort of taking him out and then McAllister for whatever reason, if you wanted to swap them both now, then they might try not to. But Jones is injured at the moment, and so at the moment, and that swap, you're looking at Tyler Morton and you're looking at Endo, and I just don't think those two can do it to sort of the same degree, and so you're even having to sort of change what you do, which I don't think the manager wants to do, you know, this early, or you're sort of relying on mistakes. It seems the biggest drop-off to me, so I'm not one, and I know you're not as well, who suddenly goes, oh, well, look how well Gravenberch's doing, they didn't need Zubimendi. They still did. We just would have been able to bring him in a little bit more slowly.
Yeah, they just need one more.
Yeah.
You know, one more in there, it's a little bit different. I think, you know, and this is where my only concern for Curtis is just that he just picks up injuries here and there. And it kills me because I love him. I think he's great. I think he's exceptional. So I think if you could drop Curtis in, I think it'd be a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
But also I think what you'd see is, to talk again, imagine this next bank of 7 games. I think you see a lot of, you know, if he's fully fit, it wouldn't surprise me if first game back, Curtis is in for Gravenberch or for McAllister. And then the midweek game,
especially McAllister's probably playing up a mountain somewhere.
So exactly. So the next game
Thursday.
in Europe, they're then both back in, and it might be that the game after Jones is in for whichever one it was. He wasn't in for the week before. Yeah. So Jones covers because it stops being cover because he's basically picking 2 from 3.
Yeah. And
then they rotate through that. And maybe it's then different for West Ham. We then have a look at something else a little bit different and go from there. I expect Elliott to start one of those 3. To get pushed into the limelight for one of those 3. Maybe not quite. Maybe that might take Bologna for Elliott or something like that to get his first full start, but then to be used from the bench, maybe a little bit more in there as well. But I'm very much of the view that, you know, I think it can work 2 from 3 on a continual rotating basis. But to your point, when one gets injured and suddenly you're like, oh God. And I think that is the concern. The only other thing I wonder is, are they working with Trent behind the scenes on what he could do in the midfield position, especially the one on the right? Have they got their eye on it a little bit, that they wouldn't feel it was the end of the world if they had to go to Bradley to right back and Trent in there? We might see that. I don't quite think we will. I think what I've liked about Trent's role, in the same way what I've liked about Salah's role, is there's just real clarity, I think, at the minute, and I wouldn't really want to muddy those waters. So I'd like there to be continued clarity, but football managers sometimes have to do things. It's literally part of the job.
And this is the squad that the football manager has, so this is the midfield that the football manager has till January the 1st at least. I hope you've enjoyed that. That has been the midfielders. You've had the forwards already. Defenders out tomorrow for 3 again, thanks to NordVPN. It is nordvpn.com/TAW if you want to sign up to that deal. Up the Reds.